Hello, hello, hello. This is Talking Manchester United, a United Stand podcast with myself, Paul Gardner, and joining me, as always, is Ash Burns. Ash, how are you, my friend?
I'm very good, thank you, mate. The season is finally over. We finally get a bit of a respite from the garbage. But yeah, looking forward to seeing what the summer holds, seeing what we do. Hopefully, we won't be too depressed. But yeah, looking forward. What about you?
Not too bad, not too bad. I've got over that game against Cardiff. Like yourself, I'm pleased that the season's ended. I think we all are. I think we can speak on behalf of every United fan in the world. We have other guests with us today. We have from across the pond, Andrew Southwick. Andrew, how are you, my friend?
You know what? You would not expect to hear this, but I am happy to be here. I'm happy to be here.
Of course
you are. What do you mean? I'm offended. You're always happy to be with us.
I mean, listen, I'm happy to be with you guys. That's what it is I'm happy to be here with you in this moment. We live in the moment because that's all Manchester United do right now is live in the moment. That's all I see on Twitter right now is people living in the moment.
He's gone all philosophical on us.
Yeah. So let's move on.
Get out of here, guys. I'm done.
Also joining us from up north is Matthew McFadyen. How are you, Matthew?
You know what? I'm actually quite mixed. I've
there's always one to bring us down, isn't there?
I know. I finished university absolutely on top of the world, and what did I do after my first day of completing uni? Sprained my ankle. So yeah, swings and roundabouts, really.
You still put in a better shift. You still put in a better shift at right back than Ashley Young.
I'll probably still got a better right foot, even though it's damaged.
Excellent. Well, that's the meet and greet out of the way. Let's get right into the nitty gritty. Cardiff City, 2-0. Where do we start with this, boys? Who wants to go first?
Can no one go?
Yeah,
I was expecting that. I didn't want to go first, which is why I put it out to you lot. So I'm going to stick to the usual, and I'm going to come to you first. Ash, what were your thoughts on the game?
Shite. I mean, I won't leave it. Yeah, it was. It was a weird one because we were so confident going into it. We talked about wholesale changes in terms of the youth coming in. Going to see some promising attacking play. Maybe some players on the pitch who would show some enthusiasm, would show a bit of bite. Wasn't really the case, was it? We only saw the one drastic change, I'd say, with Greenwood coming in. I'm disappointed we didn't see more because it was 5 or 6 youngsters training with the first team. Nothing to play for really. So I'm a bit disappointed why we didn't go for it. Why we stuck with a lot of the dead wood. I mean, we started the game with Phil Jones, Chris Smalling, and Ashley Young at the back, which is pathetic to be honest, and something I can't see going forward. I'm hoping it was a sort of like a final audition of who was going to be here for next year or who was going to be majorly included in the plans. And if that was the case, I'm pretty pleased with how it went because most people were shocking. I mean, it speaks volumes when our best player probably was Mason Greenwood, and I thought by his standards he had a terrible game. Put himself about really well. His runs into the box and the way he made himself available for so many chances was great. But the Mason Greenwood that I've watched over the past 12, 18 months, it is nowhere near. He's normally so clinical with his chances. I think maybe the occasion got to him a bit, but he was our best outlet. He offered so much going forward, but just didn't have that final finish. And everyone else around him was diabolical, and working backwards as well. I thought most players had a terrible game, and wasn't many people who put a shift in. To be honest, it stank of sort of that end of season blues. Just get it out the way and we can move on, to be honest.
I think with the Mason Greenwood, when you put a youth academy player, who's barely played any minutes into the team like that, they're going to make mistakes. They're not going to have that same confidence they had when they're playing with people their own age. He's in the big time now.
Yeah.
So you expect that from them. We've seen a couple of occasions. Well, we've seen a few. Okay, Scott McTominay's done very well this season. We've seen a few times that he can make the odd mistake. He's prone to it. And we've seen that against Cardiff as well, leading to their second goal and getting the wrong side of his man. Okay, he's not a defender, but little things like that, making the wrong decisions. When we play youth, we have to expect that. So we can be pro-youth, get them in. And I'm not confident we're going to see a lot of them next season. We will see some more than we have this season, of course, definitely, because we're going to have to plug some gaps with them. But I think we do have to expect going into next season that they are going to make mistakes. Some of them are going to cost goals, but we have to bear with them. Yep. So with this game, last week's podcast was titled Final Flourish, because we lived in hope, didn't we? We hoped we were going to see this, this flourish of great football, or at least something better than what we've been seeing recently. But it wasn't to be. Matthew, what were your thoughts?
I pretty much echo exactly what Ash said. It was just a shite game, really. It was shite with a capital shite. That's how bad it was. I don't think anyone apart from Mason Greenwood could. Yeah, I mean, get me as a pundit. Apart from Mason Greenwood, I don't think there was any players that actually played above a 5 out of 10. They were just all shocking. It was like they were on holiday already. And I don't get why he keeps persisting with that same back four, or a similar back four to that. And it was just a bit of a waste of a game, if I'm honest. I think that was arguably even worse than that Everton game, the 4-0, because that Everton game was just an absolute freak result. Like, no one could have predicted that, yet losing 2-0 at home to a team who's already been relegated, had Neil Warnock as manager. I mean, that's just inexcusable. But like Ash said, Mason Greenwood was probably the only positive. Like, he snatched a few of his chances, but at least he was actually making runs and kind of showed up Rashford, really, in terms of actually how to make intelligent runs into the box. So that's really our only positive. But yeah, it was just a dreadful game.
Yeah, definitely. Mason Greenwood was a positive, and as Ash quite rightly said, he did make himself available quite often, made some decent runs, got himself into some good positions. It was a disappointing starting 11, though. We did expect to see more of the youth in the starting lineup. We didn't, unfortunately. We have okay, you could say that the whole of the front six were technically academy products, but that's not what we were expecting. Some of them have still been underperforming, if not all of them, this season. So we expected to see some changes, a Gomez, a Chong, someone like that coming in. So it's disappointing to see the starting 11 as it was. But Andrew, I'll come to you next. What were your thoughts on the game?
I mean, we watched it all together, guys. I mean, we
did.
You know how we all felt, and like, just genuinely, the amount of disappointment that I felt and we talked about it a little bit, like the fact that it feels like all we know how to do right now is just attack centrally. Like every one of our attacks, we were just playing around in the middle when literally they were packing the entire box in the middle. Like, we never once tried to go wide. It was supremely frustrating. The only bright spots were the fact that we got to see Greenwood start the entire match and looked 10 times better than Rashford has for the last 4 months.
Yeah.
Honestly, Tahith Chong came on and actually looked pretty good. Same with Angel Gomez. But Tahith Chong did not come on. I apologize. It was Angel Gomez that came on.
That's right, yeah.
Martial, I was expecting Tahith Chong to come on instead of Anthony Martial, but Anthony Martial coming on, I mean, you have to remember, guys, according to rumors, apparently he is Pele to Joel Glazer. So, I mean, whatever, no big deal. So it was a frustrating game, and it's the first time in a while that I've started to question whether Ollie's the right guy to get us through what's going on. But at the same time, I know we need to get through and see him sell some people, because what we saw out there, and that's my hope, is that seeing the likes of Phil Jones and Chris Smalling out there, like after getting long-term extensions, that maybe this was just them being able to say goodbye. Maybe Ashley Young being out there, maybe it was just kind of like a last hurrah. Like that's my hope. Will it be the case? I'm guessing probably not, but you know what? I can live in hope. Yeah,
no, I definitely agree with your point about playing too narrow, taking too many touches, too many intricate little passes around the edge of the box, trying to get the little 1-2s. They just weren't coming off. And we've been seeing that a lot recently. We just don't seem to have that width that we need to have. That penalty shout. Now, I don't know about you guys, but for me, definitely not a penalty.
Nope.
Absolute joke.
In fairness, the ref was horrible all day long.
Yeah,
he usually is, though, John Moss. He usually is quite
garbage.
Yep. But no penalty. Never was a penalty. Didn't even get touched.
He missed the ball.
He missed
that's exactly
the ball
what it was.
and fell down on his own.
Yeah.
I mean, you could say it was a bit risky, Dalot going down to the ground like that, but at the end of the day, it wasn't a penalty.
No.
And if VAR was in place, the penalty would not have been awarded, and we could have seen a different game after that.
Roll on VAR.
we say at the moment.
Yeah.
Until it goes against us.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
Well, people don't want to hear any more about the Cardiff game, I'm sure.
Nope.
Half of the people probably already switched off. So let's move forward. Just after the game, the altercation with Paul Pogba and the fans in the stand. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't see this until about 20 minutes ago. And the reason for that, obviously, we all watched the game together. Andrew, as soon as the game finished, me and you continued talking about 10, 15 minutes. After that, I did not look at the internet or anything, any social media until Monday night. And the reason for that was A, because the game pissed me off. But not only that, the Formula One race was on at the same time. And I didn't want any spoilers until I could watch it, which was on Monday night. So I was away from social media. I had no idea this Pogba stuff was going on. So I've looked at it this afternoon. And I'll give you my thoughts straight away. Absolutely disgusting behaviour. Now, people will probably hear me say that and think, have you never been to a football game before? Been to many. And yes, fans throw abuse at players all the time. It's just one of those things. But for it to be so close, the end of that game, pointing fingers at him, calling him this, that, and the other, telling him he's shit and all that. To me, it was just like, it wasn't like these were, if it was young guys, like 18 to 24, that sort of age, you know, they've had a couple of beers before the game, they're all ramped up. You know, I'd be like, yeah, typical. But these were grown men in their 50s. Do you know what I mean? 40s or 50s. These were grown men. And they were hurling that abuse directly at Pogba. Fair play to Pogba, though. Standing there, took it, you know. Like, yeah. I mean, his body language wasn't great. But, you know, he stood there and took it at least. And sort of ignored it. Started, you know, sort of like giving the thumbs up to the players that were actually like, you know, applauding or whatever. But I just think that behaviour was absolutely disgusting. And what are your thoughts? I'll come to you first, Matthew.
It was aggressive. I'd say that. I think, you know, the manner in which he did it wasn't great. I don't know. Like, I'm so mixed when it comes to this because, on one hand, you should be able to criticise a player. You should be able to say you're a shit player if they play terribly. And let's face it, Paul Pogba's been.
My argument here. Sorry to jump in, but my argument is that. I mean, yeah, you can say you're shit, blah, 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 but the fact that it was relentless with it, pointing at him, singling him out. It
was aggressive.
He's been our best goal scorer and assist. Do you know what I mean? He's got the most goals and assists. Yep. He had a fantastic spell into the season, and he's not the worst player on the pitch. No. We've all criticised him. They all deserve criticism, but I think when you've contributed to the most goals, I think, you know, I just thought it was out of order. But carry on, Matthew, sorry.
But yeah, like I said, it was aggressive and it was probably a bit too over the top. I don't know, really. I think I've seen people calling for, you know, him to be like banned or whatever. I'm so on the fence when it comes to that, really. I just think he didn't really help himself with that. But, I mean, like you said in the group chat, at least it wasn't anything that was, you know, racist or something like that.
Yeah, that's one thing that I was quite happy that there was no racism.
Yeah, one sort of silver lining, he kept it to footballing alone. So, but yeah, I'm just so mixed when it comes to that. Like, it looked bad. And I kind of feel sorry for Paul Pogba because, you know, players shouldn't really deserve that abuse face to face. But
no, I agree with you. I did feel sorry for him a little bit as well when I watched that. I thought, Jesus Christ, you know.
Oh yeah, it's like I think that's probably one of the first times we've seen something like that involving a Man United player. Like, you know, we've seen it a few times involved with Arsenal players because we know what their fans are like. But I think it's the first occasion that we've actually seen it with a Man United fan because normally, you know, we've got some pretty classy fans and that's just the absolute antithesis of it. But yeah, it was very aggressive, I'll say that.
I mean, like I said, it happens all the time. I'm fully aware of that. I've been a part of that before. But never, when the player comes to the fans face to face and then hurling the abuse like that, I mean, that, I don't know, it's different to just having a bit of rage in you and just screaming at the pitch, so to speak. Do you know what I mean? Whilst the game's on or whilst they're walking off into the tunnel, when they actually come to you to do that, I think it's just out of order. I think, and that's just me. I mean, what are your thoughts, Ash?
Yeah, it was way over the top, wasn't it? Like you said, you know, in the heat of the moment, when the game's going on, you know, when, you know, someone misses a chance or something, you do have a bit of a go. But yeah, when the game's finished, the dust has settled, You know, they're right in front of you. It was massively over the top. Was it called for? Was it uncalled for? It's, you know, for that level of abuse. At the end of the day, he's still a Manchester United player, and I give him as much stick as anyone else. But, you know, we support the players, especially you don't, you know, give that sort of torrent of abuse right in front of their faces. And the thing of this, if you want Pogba to see the frustrations of the United fans, if you'd have gone the other way with it, I think it made him feel worse. You know, if you support him and you say, well, I think he probably would have felt it a little bit more then, you know, saying, well, I could have given more. But we're only sort of fueling that fire, really, that if he does want to move, or if, you know, the world is against him, you know, as maybe some people think, especially his agent, you know, by the fans abusing him like that, it's only feeding into what the media thinks and what his agent is probably whispering in his ear as well. So it was diabolical, to be honest. No level, you know, he shouldn't be given that level of abuse. But, you know, the thing with Pogba is he's so inconsistent, but we know he's a fantastic player. You know, with some other people of the squad, I'm not saying that level of abuse is acceptable to anyone, but you could understand it a little bit more if it was someone who's been consistently underperforming, who's been terrible week in, week out. But he has been our best player probably overall of the season in terms of obviously stats and goal output and things like that. So, yeah, it's frustrating. It's uncalled for, and I don't like to see it in the game, to be honest.
And Andrew, what are your thoughts? And do you also think that could be the action that sort of makes him think, yeah, do you know what, I'm not having any of that, I'm going.
And, you know, I watched part of the whole thing of what Patrice Evra talked about, and that is a fear of mine, is that, you know, because at the end of the day, that is a minority of people. People want Paul Pogba to, because what I see on social media is I see people wanting Paul Pogba to try harder, because there's times where it looks like he might not be trying his hardest. And it's okay to want more from your players. And I think even Paul would say that himself, that it's okay to want more from him. But at the end of the day, for somebody to be directing their abuse at Paul Pogba, the guy that led the team in goals, assists, ground covered, I mean, he led so many statistics for Manchester United this entire season, despite the fact that he's a central midfielder. And there are so many times in his game where he's asked to get further back and then still get further forward. And Paul is is one of the last people. And Paul, we talked about it after the match, that of everybody that their jobs should be safe going into next year, Paul Pogba made that list.
Yeah, definitely.
Paul Pogba was one of the few that I would say, like Paul, Victor Lindelof, and David De Gea are the three that I'm like, your job should be safe. Everybody else should be worried about their job going into next year.
Yeah, because we did say that. Yeah,
Paul Pogba 100% is one of the few guys that I believe has the talent to be able to be the guy to be a part of a big team that we need to become. And to try and just hurl abuse at him, and this is the thing, we're only seeing these guys hurl abuse at him. We're not seeing if they were actually doing it to Ashley Young, Phil Jones, everybody else. But literally standing right next to him was Andres Pereira, and the guy wasn't doing it to him. Then you've got guys like Lou Macri, I think it's how you say his name.
Lou Macari.
Yeah. So either way, is you see what he said about Paul, and I'm like, he gave away his shirt to a kid.
Yeah.
Like, are you kidding me? Like, this is the kind of stuff we're gonna do now. We're gonna talk bad about a player that's doing things for the kids. And yeah, he's standing there taking abuse. And I love that literally, as Lou mentioned the whole thing about, you know, Paul giving away his shirt to a kid. Like, literally, Andres Pereira takes his shirt off and the camera goes away. I'm like, listen, end of the day, if Paul Pogba's gonna go, he's gonna go. Like, and in all honesty, at this point, with some of the abuse that he's starting to get, I wouldn't blame him for going. Because some of it's getting to the point where I'm like, are we really going to continue to abuse the guy that probably because of him, we didn't finish below 10th?
Yeah.
He is in part, like, he is owed some credit for the fact that we were able to finish 6th. So I just agree. It was absolutely disgusting behavior from grown-ass men that And I'm actually appalled at some of the fans around him for not telling him to shut up.
Yeah.
Like, say something. Like, we talk about this all the time. Say something. Like, don't let people just do stupid shit. Actually step up and be a man and be like, hey, it's not like he's not the only problem in the team. I'm at a loss for words with that, and I hope that guy realizes that they're an absolute idiot for only getting abuse on Paul Pogba, because he is the least of our problems.
Can I flip this entire Paul Pogba situation on its head?
Do it.
Just before we move away from the Pogba, I'm like really on the fence with Pogba. Should he leave? Should he go? I mean, we know he's a massive talent, but there was a thread of tweets that came out from Michael Tunstall, the football writer, and he spoke a lot about. I'm not one to sort of read into a lot of things. I take a lot of things that don't take everything at face value. But he put a thread out about Paul Pogba, and I thought it summed up from my perspective. It summed up the whole situation perfectly. And he says the Paul Pogba problem, and this goes without saying, obviously, is nothing to do with race or nationality, because I know that's been brought, obviously, a lot into it, which is ridiculous. And he says he's our record signing. He flirts with other clubs regularly. He is our best player on his day, but he's far too inconsistent. Easy to see why he gets criticism. Imagine Rashford or Shaw dreaming of Madrid, in quotation marks. The expectation levels on Pogba are obviously higher because it's clear to see he's one of the most talented midfielders in the world. Nobody ever doubted his ability. His work rate, consistency, and attitude are the reasons he's getting criticisms from fans, rightly so. If Pogba kept his mouth shut, fans wouldn't criticise him, not even this season. Even the inconsistent Pogba wouldn't have been highlighted. It's his actions off the pitch that have irked most, not his value, not his football, not his celebrations, his constant drama. And then he goes on to say, I could deal with Cristiano Ronaldo flirting with Real Madrid at the end of every season. He was worth the hassle. Paul Pogba, if he doesn't want to be here, I drop him off at the airport myself. And then he goes and say, yes, of course he's United's best player, but he's not worth the drama. And I think, in my opinion, obviously every fan is different. Every fan will have a different take on this, but I love Paul Pogba. I think he's a massive talent, but there's always something going on with him. Granted, a lot of it is stirred up by the media, and we don't have to read into a lot of things. But we know he fell out with Mourinho. We know he was a big reason of Mourinho's downfall, and a lot of things that have come to light recently make you think that was Mourinho right for a lot of these things, and I think he was. His constant comments about Real Madrid, his agent always jumping in to say things. Even Patrice Evra's come out now and said maybe he might be leaving. So we know he's a fantastic talent, but is he really worth all this drama and unrest in the dressing room? I don't know.
It's up to him at the end of the day, isn't it?
It is.
He would have gone home or gone into the dressing room after that little altercation on the pitch, and he would have said in his head either, that's it, I've had enough, or he would have been thinking, do you know what? I want to shut these people up. Next season, you're going to see a new Paul Pogba.
Yeah.
I want to succeed here. I think it's going to be the former. I think he probably will leave. But if he stays, I think that'll be a very respectable, because let's be honest, he's not going to be short of people wanting him. Real Madrid to snap him up. There's talk about him possibly going back to Juventus. PSG would probably fork out for him. Do you know what I mean? There will be clubs out there who would buy him if he wanted to leave. There's absolutely no doubt about that whatsoever. But I think if he did decide to stay, that'd be a very respectable move. And if he did decide to stay and he came out and said that, I would actually be excited to see him next season with new players around him. I'd be excited to see that. But yeah, I think, and I think, with a new Paul Pogba, his attitude might change as well. He might shut up. He might not be speaking to the media about other clubs and things like that. I'm living in a fantasy world here about what I want to see from him. But I think at the end of the day, we probably won't see that, and he probably will end up leaving. But whilst we're talking about midfielders, unless any of you guys had anything to say about that thread that Ash read out, because I thought that was actually really good.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I saw that earlier, and I pretty much agree with exactly everything that's said there. Like, I think because we criticise Paul Pogba because he's one of our best players.
Yeah.
It's like some people just fail to understand that. It's like, you don't see us criticising Brighton and Hove Albion whenever he lose a game because we expect him to be, down the bottom of the table. Yet people always criticise or laugh at Man United whenever they lose a game because they expect us to be among Europe's elite for a reason. I think you apply that to the players in the squad, and I think it makes perfect sense, really.
Yeah. Okay, well, we're on.
Real quick, so I would say the only thing, so I was with that entire thread all the way up until he brought up the whole Cristiano Ronaldo thing. And the reason behind that is that even with Cristiano Ronaldo leaving, we still had a way more talented squad around the entire team than we did with Cristiano Ronaldo leaving. Yeah. Like that's my thing. It's like, yeah, Paul Pogba was flirting with Real Madrid and stuff like that. But if Paul Pogba left right now, like let's say that next season we're not signing anybody, not bringing anybody in. We literally lost our best player. And then I would love to see because you know for a fact that if he goes elsewhere and he starts really performing, all people are going to do is bitch about how Ed Woodward sold Paul Pogba. And it's what's going to happen. And like, I hope he doesn't go. I really do, because I think that there's still a lot more he could do for the club. And yes, it'll suck that he's got to be in Europa League for one more season, but I really hope he stays, and I hope that he just comes and shuts everybody up.
Yeah, I hope so too. But I also think, how old is he now? 25, 26?
25. Going on.
So, he's reaching his peak years now. He wants to win Champions Leagues and league titles. It's going to be a few years yet before Man United are at that level. And, if he stays at Man United, he might not win one. So I think that's another thing that's going to be playing on his mind as well. Anyway, whilst we're talking about midfielders, we did put a tweet out from the United Stand podcast account, which Ash will dive into in just a few seconds. It's about Ander Herrera and him leaving in the current, state of affairs. But Ash, you want to read that tweet out, and we'll discuss that and read the responses.
Yeah, so there was a poll attached to this tweet. It said, have Manchester United made the right decision letting Ander Herrera leave the club considering the current state of affairs? Give us your thoughts in the replies once you've voted. And pretty overwhelming result. 73% in favour of no, the club didn't make the correct decision. They shouldn't have let him go. And we've got a few replies chipping in on the issue. United be right. The club made a big mistake, in my opinion. Herrera says it all in his video. His heart is red. He knows what Manchester United is all about, and he was one of the only fighters left in that team. Many should have gone before him, which I think is pretty spot on, to be honest. I think it reflects what a lot of us say.
Yeah.
Swag Lord, why are we getting rid of players who love the badge and keeping players only bothered about their brand? That was from Swag Lord. Benjamin Bath. Well, is the goal to be 10th? He should stay. Is it rebuilding a shithouse? He and so many more need to go. Michael Stow, I'm biased as he's my favourite player. No way he should have left. Not the most talented, but clearly the heart of the team. I don't want to hear any of this greed bullshit. No one would turn down more money. And then Kieran Stockton, if he loved the badge so much, he wouldn't be asking for a ridiculous amount of money. He's passionate and hardworking, but nowhere near the quality of player being paid 300 grand a week. So some conflicting thoughts among the fan base. What do you guys think? Do you want to reflect on any comments that have been made there, or chip in with your own?
Who you going to have to go first then, Ash? This is all on you, boy.
Let's go with Mr. Southwick then, because I'm sure
since there's none of them are jumping in, you may as well call them out.
Yeah. Get in line.
Listen, Ander Herrera, I always respected his passion, always respected the fact that it seemed like he was one of the few players that always cared. But at the end of the day, like I said, I in a tweet earlier on, I'm not going to buy any of the rumors or anything like that's going on. But if it was anything above 200 grand a week, I'm sorry, I love you, Ander, but go make your paper, because I do not think for 1 second we should be paying that kind of money to a guy that ultimately, when we start improving this squad more, would be nothing more than a squad player coming like 3 years, 4 years. And not only that, but at 20, because he's 29, if I remember correctly, going on 30 here really soon.
Yep.
To give a guy a 4-year contract on that money is just stupid.
Yeah, but to me though, he looks like a player that could play until he's 35. He doesn't look like he's slowing down.
I don't disagree. I'm not going to disagree with that at all. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to pay somebody at that age that kind of money.
Yeah, that I'll agree. Yeah.
For what he brings at the end of the day. Just I'm not going to do it. And I do love Ander Herrera. I want everybody to know that I love Ander Herrera, but we cannot make stupid financial decisions. And yes, Alexis Sanchez getting the money he did probably is what caused a lot of this bullshit. But we can't continue to do that. And I get why we wouldn't pay him that kind of money.
Yep. Matthew,
so
agree?
are you saying, so Andrew, are you saying that you say that that Man United have made the right decision letting Ander Herrera leave the club then? So you're one of the 27%, yeah?
Yeah,
just so we get, just so we can fully understand that's the way you're swaying on this one.
Yes, I was, and I was actually one of the 27% that voted. Yes, I was okay with him leaving. Like at the end of the day, I think we can do better, and for less money at the end of the day too.
Wicked. I'm going to jump in. Sorry, Matthew. I know you were just about to speak, but I didn't actually vote on this one because the way I look at it is I was swaying towards no, because when you look at the club at the moment, we struggle to see that kind of passion anywhere. Ole wants to bring that into the club. So to bring players from outside, you kind of want to have an example of that already in the team. We've just got rid of that. There's not many other players. And Valencia, I guess you could say, has got, red in his heart. And you've seen that in his video as well. They're gone now, both of them. Understandably so for Valencia. So you're getting rid of that aspect out of the team that you want to keep in there or put in there. So for me, it remains to be seen whether or not this was the right decision by Man United, by what they do in the summer. If they bring somebody in, I mean, I don't doubt that they're going to they'll bring somebody in of a greater quality, but they need to bring somebody in who really is up for it and really wants to be at Man United and will immediately show that same passion like Ander did when he first joined the club. He was absolutely thrilled to be playing for Man United, and we weren't in the best of places then. No. For me, it remains to be seen whether or not it's been the right decision. You have to wait and see what the club does to replace him, because in terms of quality, he's not going to be that difficult to replace. But in terms of passion and commitment, that's not something you can find easily in this day and age. So I think even if this is where it becomes difficult, because even if you could hold him on just for another year, do you know what I mean? Offer him another year extension, just to be that sort of example in the club. That would have been fantastic. But we know he wouldn't do that because of his age. He wants to move on. He's been offered more money, didn't get what he wanted from United. And I agree with Andrew. If it was anything over 200, I think even 200 may have been a bit of a stretch. So I understand from United's point of view why they didn't do it, but they have to act on that. If they're going to allow him to go, which probably is going to be the right decision, they have to react to that and bring in somebody of better quality, which I think they will, but they have to have that same passion as well, and that's what's going to be difficult.
Matthew.
So that's why I'm on the fence with it.
Yeah, I'm on the fence as well, really. Like, there's so many things that make me sort of for Herrera leaving, and there's so many things that make me against it. I think if there's one thing that most of us can agree on, it's the fact that the club shouldn't have let it run down to this time, where he's in his last year of his contract. They should have noticed, he's got 18 months on his contract now. Now's the time that we actually want to start.
Well, for all we know, the club may have done. And the fact that they were negotiating for so long and they got to a point where they thought, do you know what? We're not going to give you what you want. You can go.
Could be.
It could be that 18 months ago is when the talk started. We don't know that.
Yeah, maybe never will know that. Only just going on based on the reports. But in terms of the whole, 200k thing, see, when we compare it to Alexis Sanchez, I think everyone's worth as much money that he's on, quite frankly, considering how awful he's been. But in the grand scheme of things, you're giving 200k a week to someone who, if we're challenging for the title, which we won't do in the next couple of years, then I'm sorry, a squad player shouldn't be on 200k a week. And I think we've criticised the board a lot for, pretty much being pushovers at times when it comes to new contracts. They give new contracts based on form, a few decent games and he suddenly gets himself a 5-year extension. Look at Phil Jones, for example. And I think the first time that they've actually been so ruthless with this, it's just so happened that it's been one of the fan favourites. So I think there's an unfortunate aspect to that. But with Herrera, if he wants to leave, then a club should, try and convince him to stay. But at the same time, if that's his final decision, you need to let him go. But the thing that annoys me the most is the fact that we're not going to get a single penny from it. I think that's the most annoying thing, because realistically, if he had signed a new contract and he still had 1 year left, he'd probably be about £30 million, which, to be fair, isn't a massive amount of money, but at least it's something. But no, we're actually letting him go on a free. So I think that's the most frustrating thing about it, but there's so many different variables that sway me to each side, really.
Yeah. I think I'm the same on that.
I'm pretty much firmly in the no. I think the club did make a mistake, but not for the reasons that you think. It sort of reflect what Matthew said about the club letting it run down to to so late in the day, and I don't think it's a case of the club were actively negotiating. I don't think the club are savvy enough to do that. I really don't think so. I don't think the people are in place. I don't think Ed Woodward is the type to try and negotiate a new deal for people for those who maybe aren't as I don't know, maybe as appealing sort of to sponsors and to for advertisement and shirt sales and whatnot. I really don't think so. I don't think Ed would have been prioritizing that. I think he'd have been prioritizing other things in the club and not been too bothered, to be honest, because in my opinion, I mean, I could be completely wrong, but as Ander said in his video, and as he's shown us every time he steps onto the pitch, he bleeds United. And I think, honestly, if a year and a half ago we'd have offered him a 2-year extension on his current deal at the same wage, I think he'd have taken it. I really do. Obviously, I could be well wrong, but in my opinion, we shouldn't have let it go this long. I don't care what you say. I don't care. With Ed Woodward and the board and whatnot, I just don't think they're competent enough to negotiate a decent deal out of someone who's granted not an essential player going forward, but currently in this squad, he has been an essential player in my opinion. He has been one that's brought the balance to the side. As Paul rightly said, he is one of those players that leads from the front. He shows passion, he shows drive, and you try and think how many players in the current squad have got that same mentality. I mean, you'll struggle to find two. And as Paul said, he would set an example for young players coming in. He's got the right mentality. He plays football the right way, and we've lost that now. But on the flip side, there's no way he should be getting $200,000 a week plus for someone, granted, who offers a lot in terms of mentality and leadership, but ultimately in terms of quality, he's not really what we're looking forward to if we want to build a successful team. So I'm still pretty annoyed that we let him go. I'm just hoping we can get someone in the same mold mentality wise.
And I think as well, Ole would have probably wanted to keep hold of him, even as a squad player, because he would be a great squad player to have around. So I think Ole would have wanted to keep hold of him. Speaking of Ole wanting to do things, we put another tweet out this week as well as a reaction to the reports about the Ole, Solskjaer and Joel Glazer story. Ash, do you want to take away that one?
Yeah, so this one again had another poll on it, reflecting on reports that Joel Glazer has blocked Ole's attempt at selling Martial, which isn't an uncommon thing with big clubs this summer. Who do you believe is right? And then there was a poll. The top option was Ole, sell Anthony Martial, and then the bottom one was Glazer, keep Anthony Martial. And it ended up finishing 66% in favour of Ole, in favour of the manager, and he should have been allowed. Well, obviously this is all reports; we don't really know for sure, but he should be allowed to sell Martial if he wants to. A lot of replies on it. We've got a reply from Andrew. We've got a reply from Matthew. So you can explain those yourself in a second. I mean, you look down, Paul Hibbard, he said, we need players who want to play for the club and not perform when they want to. We need more consistency from the players and players that want to play for the shirt. I'm a hustler. I like that. Funny that when Mourinho wanted to sell him, the majority went riot. Now we're really considering it because it's Ole. It doesn't seem fair, does it? Interesting point there. Sam praised Shaka. Martial should be kept. I just believe Ole should build him up and give him confidence. Stephen R. Evans, if the manager wants to sell him, sell him. Michael Stow, he's got plenty left on his contract. 1 full year under Ole, and let's see what he's got. Another season like this one and sell for sure. Bring the youngsters into the squad if no one else wants to play. Another one, Nova, his last year, Martial's contract was running low and you wanted to tie him down to a new deal. Martial's just going through a bad spell. He's still young, learning the game, etc., etc. And then Benjamin Bath, I'm going to go with Glazer. Ole knows nothing about football, which is an interesting one to end on. So if we come back to Matthew and Andrew, you replied to it. Just give us a little bit more of an in-depth view on what you think on the Martial situation. Come to you first, Matt.
Yeah, sure. I pretty much said I feel like he's kind of played for a new contract. To be honest, I think he got a new contract in January or so, and since then he's just not really done a great deal, to say the least. I think, see, if we had a few more wide forwards, be it left wingers or right wingers or even strikers, then I'd be more than fine selling him, because he had an amazing first season, and he'll forever live off that goal against Liverpool. But since that first season, he's very much been on a straight line in terms of his progress. He's had, a period of 2 months or so where he'll play like an absolutely world-class player, cool as ice when he gets in the box. And then he'll have another 3 months where he just doesn't do anything. He looks lazy, he's not willing to track back, and he just doesn't look like he wants to play for United. And I think that's my biggest criticism of him, is the mentality. And we saw that video in training. I don't know what game it was, but it was one of the last games of the season at Old Trafford. Someone took like a 40-second video of Martial just standing there with the ball, doing nothing in a pre-match warm-up. And there's some people saying, "Oh yeah, but he wasn't picked for the starting 11, so he's got every right to be annoyed." Yeah, you've got every right to be annoyed, but you've got every right to earn your money and actually look like you have some kind of enthusiasm and actually put in the work in the pre-match training. Because who knows if he's going to get taken off the bench and he's going to feel a little bit rusty because he didn't do anything in the training. So for me, I think a lot of it's down to mentality. He very much plays for himself rather than the team. And, the last few months in general, with his absolutely horrendous form, it's probably been his worst run of form since joining United. That's not helped it in the slightest. But at the same time, we've just got such lack of depth up front in terms of quality. So I wouldn't immediately sell him. But if we had maybe 1 or 2 more players, then yeah, he'd go.
And just before Andrew jumps in, I just want to say, Matthew, that my favourite quote from you there was living off that Liverpool goal.
Yeah,
you're going to get that tattooed on your paw.
I thought Ash might pipe up when I said that. How many times have I said that over the years?
Plenty.
Yeah. And how many times do we see a Martial gif and it's always that goal?
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Andrew, explain yourself.
So, listen. I'm a huge Anthony Martial fan. That's no secret. But at the end of the day, if a manager that I know will bring in the right replacement, not somebody that's going to be aging and will be out of the squad in 2 years, wants to sell him, then sell him. Like that's what it comes down to. If he wants to sell him, you sell him. Because that to me says, because Ollie knows, like, I trust Ollie in knowing what he wants to bring in. And at the end of the day, that's who I'm going to put my faith in. However, I'm also going to say this. I don't believe for 1 second all of these rumors about Joel Glazer saying that he views Anthony Martial as Pele. I'm like, first of all, there's no way that would get out unless Joel Glazer literally went to the media himself. But this absolute, like, just crap of what's been going on with Anthony Martial, that he went from being, like, before he got hurt, he was probably one of the better players under Ollie. Then he got hurt, came back, and, like, just was never, ever, ever the same after coming back from the small injury that he got. And I do think that comes down to a lot of his mentality. You guys have talked about it multiple times, that you've questioned his mentality. And once again, for the first time in a while, I'm starting to really question his mentality. I'm starting to question all the players' mentalities, because it's appalling that somebody is able to just basically, like Matthew, like Paul, like you all have said, he lives off of basically one moment right now. Now, don't get me wrong, he's also got a lot of goals right now for Manchester United.
Yeah, he has done a lot of good things.
Yeah, but if Ollie wants to sell him because he thinks he can bring in somebody better, all I'll say is Ollie better get it right with who he wants to bring in. But if that's what he wants to do, I trust that he'll do the right thing because he probably wants to bring in a more traditional style winger instead of having these wingers that always just want to cut inside, cut inside, cut inside. Maybe it'll be somebody that will stay wide and be able to put in a decent cross.
Yep. Paul?
I did vote on this one, and I did vote for Ollie, and that he should have been allowed to sell Anthony Martial if he wanted to. And like again, we're just reflecting on reports that we see in the media. I mean, if there is any truth to it, I think it completely undermines Ollie. Weeks after he said that he's going to have the final say on transfers, to see this come out as, it's quite bad. I mean, whether it's true or not, I don't know. But, for argument's sake, for the sake of having something to discuss, this is what we all do. We all reflect and react to what we see in the media. Again, take it with a pinch of salt, as you say, Ash. But I do think that, if Ollie does, or is open to selling Martial, because we'd get a decent sum for him, which could help us to bring more players in, talented players with a bit more bite and a bit more effort, then I think he should have been allowed to sell him. I mean, Anthony Martial, I think I heard, I've got the tweets here, I can have a look. So I think Michael Stow was one of the guys, a regular listener. We do appreciate your I was going to say viewership then, but you're not watching us, are you? Yes, he does have plenty left on his contract. 1 full year under Ollie and see what he's got. I think we've seen enough of him, to be honest. I mean, we've got 3 or 4 years now he's been at Man United, and it's just been the same story every season. He's inconsistent. He doesn't have the intelligence, I believe, to be a forward at Man United. He has spells of brilliance, but it lasts for a couple of games, and then he's poor then for weeks on end. I think we've seen enough. He's had his chance under Ollie. He's had half a season. He started well, got that injury, came back, and he's just reverted back to what he's like. And like you say, Ash, he's got his contract that he wanted, and or Matthew might have said, I can't remember. And I personally think he's had his chance, and I think if Ollie wanted to sell him, make some moolah from him, and invest in another talent, because he's not the only talented forward out there. There's other talents out there we can go for who would probably put in a lot more effort and probably have a bit more intelligence on the pitch, to find spaces, to run into spaces, to get behind the last man, which he never does. And we hear Ollie talking about it all the time, how he wants his forwards to do that, get in behind, make these runs. And we don't see him do it often enough. We don't see it from any of the forwards often enough, really. And that's the bad thing about it. So yeah, I think Ollie was right. Again, if this is true, I think Ollie should have been allowed to sell him, and I think it's absolutely wrong of Joel Glazer to step in and say no. I mean, again, we hear about non-football people making footballing decisions. This is just a prime example. I mean, imagine calling him Man United's Pele. That's just ridiculous. I mean, I'm with Andrew on that one. I don't believe that was ever said. But again, if it's true that it's been blocked, I think it's wrong.
Completely. I agree. I think that we made the mistake of, well, if it's a mistake or is it a blessing in disguise with Mourinho, where we didn't give him the freedom in the transfer market last year, which ultimately cost him his downfall pretty much. And then once you start undermining the manager, that's it. You've lost them, and I don't know what to think of it. I can see the Glazers doing something like this because I'm sure Martial has a massive commercial appeal. Martial FC, there's a massive fan base solely for Anthony Martial. We've seen that.
Have we? never heard of it.
Martial FC, what's that? But yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, personally, who was it that said? Ander Herrera. He said, funny that when Mourinho wanted to sell and the majority went riot, now we're really considering it because it's Ole. And you got to think, did Mourinho have a point? He questioned his attitude and his mentality. But I think the difference is with Mourinho, he wanted to replace him with someone like Willian, who was, who we can see now.
Well, his replacement would have been, what's his name, Perisic.
Yeah, which I mean it could have worked, might have not. But again, Perisic wasn't, the youngest. So he's 30 now, is he, or 29? Willian's around the same age, and granted, he went for players with that mentality, but ultimately we want to build something that's going to last. And having these stopgap players constantly, is not doing the club any favors. We need to build a team that's going to grow together. Most of the best teams have done down the years. Rome wasn't built in a day, and you look at these teams, just look at the current Liverpool team. I think you said, Andrew, when Klopp first took over, he had a pretty terrible first 6 months, but he slowly built his team, and look at what they're achieving. Granted, they're being outplayed by Man City just in the league, but what they're building is something special to Liverpool fans, and it sickens me to see it. But every single player on that pitch will die for Klopp and will die for the shirt, which is what you need in football, and which we haven't had for a long time. So I think we need to build a team which is ready to play with each other, get some youngsters in, build the team around them, and give them opportunities. So, I mean, am I for selling Martial? Yes, but granted, as long as we bring in the right players, and as long as we're not bringing in aging, for players who are only going to be with us a season or two and who are going to cost us a fortune in wages and whatnot. And so, yeah, you've got to back your manager, regardless of what the manager wants. If you've given him a 3-year contract and say, this is your project now, you've got to back him with whatever decisions he wants to make. And if the reports are true and the Glazers have stopped him doing that, you might as well tear up his contract now, in my opinion. And Ole, being the proud man that he is, he could walk for all we know, but I don't think that'll happen. I'm not too sure in the reports, but yeah, you just don't do that.
No, I would agree. But I think that wraps up the poll tweets, at least anyway. Ash, you put a tweet out today on the account.
Did. So yeah, Afternoon Reds, I said, recording this week's podcast, and it's the end of season review. Let us know if there's anything you'd like to discuss.
I'm just going to quickly jump in there.
Go on.
Actually, no, I'll save it till the end. Carry on.
Okay, fair enough. So a lot of the questions are solely based around transfers and speculation and whatnot, which we try and steer away from. But I mean, silly season is approaching quite quickly. So
someone's been watching Formula One.
So yeah, we'll allow it. So top of the shot then, Daniel, Dan, MUFC 31, 3 in, 3 out for United this summer. Who's the 3 that come in and who's the 3 that go? Also, which ones in the academy have a realistic chance of becoming a top player and making it at United? Looking forward to listening. Thank you for your support, Daniel. Go on in, Andrew. 3 in, 3 out.
All right, so 3 in. Actually, no, I'll start with 3 out. So, out Phil Jones, out Ashley Young, and then out Romelu Lukaku.
Right.
That's the exact 3 I would go for as well.
Yeah, it's very similar.
And then in, I would go with Timo Werner.
Interesting.
I would go with Mathis de Ligt, and I would go with the tough part is I don't know if because I'm limited to only 3. I would say probably Aaron Wan-Bissaka, just that way we could instantly have somebody that I know would come in and at least put in a good shift, because I'm not sold on Delo yet. But it would either be Aaron Wan-Bissaka or Ruben Neves. And then as for players that I think can succeed from the youth setup, I realistically think Mason Greenwood has a real shot at being a true talent, not only in this league, but in world football. We saw it in the game. We saw the intelligent runs that he made. We just basically his end product was missing. And in all honesty, that could come down just to the nerves of starting your first ever match for the team. And then there's only 2 other players that I'm like, okay, I can maybe see it. And one of those is Tahith Chong. I think that he really does fit that traditional winger mold. And then the other one, he's not in the youth setup at the moment, but he was loaned out to Aston Villa, and that is Axel Tuanzebe. I believe Axel has a real shot at being a true talent in this league.
I like it. Math, agree, disagree?
I kind of agree. In terms of the 3 outs and 3 ins, I'd maybe sell players to make a statement. So in terms of 3 outs, Lukaku, Pogba, Matic.
Oof.
Yep.
Ruthless.
Big statements. And then bringing in 3 players would probably be Ndidi, Bruno Fernandes, and either Aaron Wan-Bissaka for right back or Jadon Sancho. Because I think we need a right winger more than most other positions in the field. But then again, Delo, for me, is more of a winger than a fullback. So depends on where you see him playing.
Interesting.
But yeah, I'd make sales that are not only going to get huge money. So like Pogba, is that, like 120, 130 million pounds fee being discussed, and I think that's probably a realistic amount of money for him. And if we were to actually get that from a club, goodbye, Paul. And then Lukaku, he's probably going to go for about 50, 60 million maybe. Maybe a bit hopeful, but
I think realistically, Lukaku would still go for about 75 million. Reason being is the performance he put in for Belgium, and look what he did for United, despite the fact that he didn't really play a lot in this latter half of the season.
I mean, if we get 75 million for him, then I'll fly. Then I'll pay for his flight. But in terms of the youth players as well, I'd probably echo exactly what Andrew said. Tuanzebe, even though I think he was at fault for one of the goals in the Aston Villa West Brom game, apart from that, he was by far one of the best defenders on the pitch. Every Aston Villa fan has been saying he's one of the best players of the season. He's so mature for his age. I think he's only 21. Very similar.
He showed signs of that even when he played for United.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, I remember that game against, I think it was Arsenal. Even though we lost, he was comfortably man
he
to
was
man.
absolutely
Out of
fantastic.
position. He was playing. I think he was playing right back.
Yeah,
and you can just see the maturity from him. And then the other 2 players as well. I think with Chong, he's probably a player who needs a lot of coaching. Like he is very talented, but sometimes he'll just pick up the ball and just run straight at an opponent's defender or an opponent defender and just not get past him. He's prone to a little bit of lapses in concentration or whatever, but that can easily be coached. So I don't really have any real issues. But Mason Greenwood, there's people talking about him saying he's the most two-footed player that they've seen in years. Like he's naturally left-footed, yet scored 2 free-kick goals against Liverpool with his right foot.
Yeah.
That says it all. And I think he scored the exact same amount of goals with his left foot than he has with his right, which just shows that, professional footballers should be able to use both the left and right foot.
Yeah.
And he's actually someone who has clearly worked on that and seems to be benefiting massively. And we saw against Cardiff as well. Greenwood looks more than ready for me.
I like it. Paul?
The 3 out, I would definitely mirror Andrew's selection. I think it was Andrew that said it. So it would be, or it might have been you, Ash. Can't remember. It would be, I thought it was Andrew. Ashley Young, Phil Jones, and Romelu Lukaku would be 3 that I would say would be the first out the door. 3 coming in. Let's go with similar positions. So I'm going to go basically just on player stats that I've read. When I've seen a link to a player, I'll look at their stats for this season. And I think if I was to go for a right back, it would be Wan-Bissaka, a midfielder, Bruno Fernandes, because he's goals and assists from midfield, absolutely fantastic. And I would probably say João Felix as a forward. Would be a good acquisition for 3 to come in. In terms of academy players, Mason Greenwood, obviously top of the list. Axel Tuanzebe, definitely agree with that. I've always rated him very, very highly. Watching him play for United, I've always been excited by him, and hearing things from Villa fans and seeing Villa fans tweeting about him on Twitter, obviously, just makes me think. And I've seen pictures of him as well. He's built. He's built out. He's stocky. He's a unit, and I think he's got what it takes. Forget Kalidou Koulibaly, bring Tuanzebe back in. But yeah, I mean, Tuanzebe, Mason Greenwood, and if I've had to pick one other one, I think I'd go with Angel Gomez.
Interesting.
I don't know why, but I've not seen much of Gomez or Chong, except when they've been playing in the United squad. And I don't know why, I just think that Gomez has got more about him.
Yeah. In terms of, I think, flexibility, I and maybe fit into the squad. I mean, it depends which route we're going to go with the youngsters. I mean, well, I'll come back to that. I'll go 3 out. My 3 out. Ashley Young, probably. I'm going to go with Nemanja Matic, my second one, and then probably Lukaku. So a bit of a blend of what you've all said. I think with the likes of Tuanzebe coming back and whatnot, I don't know if we're going to keep a lot of cover in centre back, but we need to strengthen right back. We need to strengthen central defence. We need to strengthen our attack. 3 ins, definitely a right back. So either Wan-Bissaka or Munier, or I'll say Wan-Bissaka just solely for the Premier League experience. Other centre back, Rafael Varane, why not? Not that he'd ever come, but he'd be a second choice. And then my third choice might surprise a lot of people because there's been a lot of speculation surrounding him anyway, is Dan James. I'm not biased at all because I'm a Welshman or because I've seen him play more times this season than I've seen probably a lot of other players. I've seen him a few times in the flesh this season, funny enough. And I don't want to say he's exactly what we need because it's always a gamble, but in terms of youth, energy, passion, and quality, and ridiculous amounts of pace, he can be someone that can spin our attack on his head. And I like what I've seen of him so far. Obviously, we never know how it's going to go, but those are my 3 players who I bring in. In terms of youth, now the reason I didn't bring in either a Ruben Neves or a Bruno Fernandes, I think one of the players that has a massive chance to succeed if he's given the chance and the opportunity, I think is Jimmy Garner. Watched him quite a bit this season. His composure, he is sort of Michael Carrick incarnate at times, but defensively, I think he's even better. I think he's more energetic. He wins the ball back really well, and his distribution has been fantastic across all the levels that he's played at, under 18, under 23s. And I think he can be a real asset for us if he gets time and minutes next season. And of course, how many reinforcements we bring in midfield, so we could see him feature a lot more. But I think he's a massive talent. Mason Greenwood goes without saying. Axel Tuanzebe, I really think he should come in and play ahead of Phil Jones and Chris Smalling. Depends if we bring another centre back, but I genuinely think he's at that level. I've seen him a few times this season. I've been really impressed with him. And then Gomez and Chong. It's a difficult one because Chong is a lot more direct, but Gomez is a lot more intelligent. Gomez is your Juan Mata to where your Chong is your Marcus Rashford, if that makes sense. Yeah. I think he's a lot more intricate with the ball. He can pick a pass. His physicality is what maybe is a few question marks because he's not the biggest of frame of a lad, but he is quite young as well at the moment. So either of those coming through, I'd really like to see. So yeah, I just hope we play a lot of the youth next season. I really do. Why not?
Absolutely.
There we go. So yeah, thank you for that. It was a decent discussion. Jake, MFC, he says each of your preferred options for the 5 main areas we need improvement. Well, I think we've touched upon that in the last question, bringing in, and I think there was a report today that Ole is being given 5 transfers that he can bring in, with full backs, central midfield, and right wing, something like that being options. I
believe that when I see it.
Yeah, exactly. And then to finish us off, Statman Doug. After United made 131 changes to their starting lineup last season, what changes need to be made to that starting lineup, as in who goes and who stays in that squad? So again, something we've just touched upon, the 3 in, 3 out. Anything to add on either of those?
Well,
anyone?
Not on my part.
What I took Doug's question as is, of the starting 11 that we basically had to end the season with, that we all kind of knew as Ollie's preferred 11, how many do you think need to be replaced? And of that, again, I say we're looking at, I would say 7 that need to be replaced of that 11.
Yeah.
The only person I'd be okay with keeping his job, because I'd like to see how he'll do with somebody else he might have better chemistry with, is Luke Shaw. Well, everybody else, I mean, something else we could have talked about too was Marcus Rashford's tweet about needing to find the willingness.
That pissed me off.
I almost lost my shit when I read that. I was like, are you kidding me? You need to find the willingness to play for the club that you grew up in. Are you kidding me?
Yep.
Get out! Like, go. I hope that Barcelona want to buy him for that rumored $100 million. I will literally, I will fly him there, and then send him with a get well soon package because he's going to need it.
Yeah,
I did see that tweet, and I did see Ash quote that tweet, and I think somebody replied to you, Ash, saying to, not in exact words, but basically give him a break. He probably didn't mean it in that exact sense. And I kind of agree with him. I mean, I don't think Marcus Rashford is struggling to find that willingness. He says we as in a collective, because let's face it, there are players in that squad who just don't show it at all.
Yeah.
So I don't think he's talking about himself in that respect. Yeah, he probably shouldn't have said it in hindsight, but he's human. He tweets things. We all tweet things that we probably think after, I probably shouldn't have sent that. Do you know what I mean? But we send it, we can delete it. About 8 people see it. He tweets it and deletes it. It's already all over the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I read that tweet. Yeah, I was thinking, are you kidding me? What? And then I read that guy's reply to you, and I thought, you're probably right. Actually, you probably used the wrong word. You probably shouldn't have said that. A mistake. I mean, I don't doubt that. I mean, he does try, bless him. It's just that final product he's lacking at the moment. We thought he had it when Ole first took over, because if you remember, Ole actually said he was going to work with Marcus Rashford on his finishing, and for a few games, Rashford was scoring some goals, that you would expect him to score. Not just hit and hope, and he was actually taking decent shots, placing it past the keeper. We've seen that from him for a few games, and that sort of disappeared after a while. But yeah, I do think that was probably taken a bit out of not out of context, but the reaction to that was a bit of an overreaction.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm prone to it, so.
I wanted to ask you guys a question because it kind of went along with this whole Paul Pogba possibly being gone thing. I mean, realistically, I think that if Paul Pogba's going anywhere, it's going to be Real Madrid. Would you guys prefer the money that would come from that, or would you prefer to get in the likes of, let's say, Varane and Kroos, or get a couple of players from that? What would be your preference?
For me, at least, I would say I'm not fussed about the money side of it. I mean, okay, then let me rephrase that. With the Glazers in charge, yeah, I probably would. But really, being the richest club in the world, that shouldn't be a major factor. Me personally, I would like to see him stay. I'd rather he stayed than we got 100 million for him, because I think that he has so much to offer still, and I think that he can be a better player, and I would like to see him take that on. I don't think he will. I think he will go, and we will get money for him. But I would rather he stayed than take the money, because money shouldn't be an option, a problem for us. It shouldn't be a thought.
Matt?
Initially, I was like, yeah, 100% take the money, but Paul brings up a good point in that we're owned by the Glazers. How much money is actually going to go to transfers? Now, if the vast majority of that is going to go to transfers, I'd take the money, because it means that we can, spend. See in the summer window, I don't want to see these huge, big names that are just going to sell shirts. I'd rather us, buy 5 or 6 players who are all at about 40, 50 million or so.
I wouldn't mind big names as long as they're not 30.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I wouldn't mind the big names, just as long as they actually want to come and they're going to deliver. Because we've seen it so many times with a lot of our big name signings. They've either come here for a year, done okay, and then left, or they've just been absolute car crashes like Alexis Sanchez. Personally, I think this summer should be the summer of buying players who want to come, who actually have a point to prove, and strengthening the squads in terms of strength and depth. Personally, I don't think we need to buy these, huge galactical signings, because it will end up similar to Paul Pogba, I think, where you've got poor players next to you, and it's not really going to, make you play to your full potential, if you like.
That's a good point.
If we get like 120, 130 million, I'd sell him. No doubt about it.
Yeah, I mean, for that amount of money, for someone who has, regardless of his talent, for someone who's been inconsistent and I don't want to say unwilling, but you know, a little bit erratic in terms of mentality and willingness. I mean, yeah, but we know what the Glazers are like. We still haven't spent well. Have we spent Ronaldo's money yet? I don't know. But yeah, to put 130 million in the Glazers' back pockets, I mean, I don't think so. If we could get players, but it all depends on what players. We know Real Madrid are in a rebuilding phase at the moment as well. But I fear they'll do it a lot more efficiently than we will. We've seen that today. They've already signed Jovic for 50 odd million, whatever it is.
It would have been a perfect signing for us.
Yeah, it could have been a bargain depending on how he gets on. But yeah, it's certainly a good deal. It seems like. I mean, how many players out of that, you know, would you want that aren't aging? I mean, Varane obviously one that jumps out to me. I mean, Carvajal is a right back, but again, he's not old, but he's you know, he's got a lot of experience and he's progressing forward. Plus, he's known to be erratic as well. As I reflect both of your statements, if we keep the money, if we can get the money to put towards transfers, I'm taking the money. If not, give us some players in exchange. Why not?
Well, I think that wraps it up then.
I have got an analogy.
Oh, go.
Because being this is the season review, as it were.
Do you know what? This time I am going to stop you right there.
Go on.
It's not the season review.
Oh. Well,
what were you going to say?
I was just going to sum it up really with what I've been thinking about this season.
Well,
but, I mean, if you want me to keep it,
write it down. Write it down. Make a note of it. Because even though I said it last week, and I said it, I think I've tweeted. Well, no, I haven't tweeted it, but I know I've said it once or twice. Yeah, I know.
It's fine.
For everyone listening, this isn't the season review. That's going to be next week.
Okay.
This was just a normal podcast reviewing Cardiff, talking about what's going on during the week. Next week is going to be the season review. We're trying to have some fun with it as well. But just before I wrap the podcast up, did anybody else have anything they wanted to add?
Can we please have at least one transfer, please, before we go next week, please? Like just something to get a little. Like I don't even care if it is like Dan James or whatever. Just something, please.
Well, let's keep our fingers crossed. So yeah, Andrew, Matthew. Well, I come to Andrew first. Thank you for joining us. It's been a pleasure as always. Are you going to come and join us next week for the season review?
If it is the same time, same day, I'd have to say maybe. Because I just found out I'm going to be going to Kansas City for some work, so right. I cannot make a guarantee.
Fair enough. Anyway, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for joining us. Did you want to give out your Twitter details, promote your channel?
Yeah, for sure, man. Thank you. So Twitter is @RedBeardedRed. I'll talk everything sports on there, primarily Manchester United and Phoenix Rising, but I'll talk all sports on there. And then YouTube is the Red Bearded Red. Get on there. I know I'm not making a lot of content right now, guys. For anybody that knows that I've got a lot going on right now. So we'll get back to making some more regular content here soon once things kind of settle out a bit.
Excellent. And Matthew, thank you for joining us again. Are you going to join us next week for the...
I should be able to. If it's the same time and same day, then yeah, don't see why not.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, it will be the same time, same day. And did you want to give out your Twitter details?
Sure. Twitter is @_Matthew, so @_MAFFO. And also check out offsidegraphics.com. Obviously going to plug that.
Yeah, I was just going to say, do you want to plug that?
Yep. Specifically, if you are a fan of the women's team, the Man United women's team, I've put up a lot of posters of some of the players there. So cop yourself a poster if you want.
Excellent. And Ash, as always, thank you for joining us.
Thanking you. Yeah. You know my lot. Ash Boyo, ASHBOIO.
Excellent. And you can follow myself as well @PaulGardener_MU. Follow the United Stand podcast account @UnitedStandPod. We're also on YouTube, as you know. So just search Talking Manchester United or United Stand podcast in YouTube and you'll find us. Like, subscribe and comment. We love it when you do. Not enough people are at the moment, so make sure you do. And obviously we're on every podcast app. You can probably fine. We should be, at least anyway. So that about wraps it up. We will be back next week. We will do a season review episode. We will look at the season's highs, the season's lows, amongst other things as well. So hopefully that'll be a bit of fun. Try and forget about, we probably won't focus too much on the lows. Try and bring some positivity back to you, essentially. So thank you for joining us. We'll be back next week.